Hello, as I'm sure you know, my name is Emily Reinhardt. I'm a graduate student in the Natural Resources and Ecology program at SUNY Plattsburgh. Sorry I cannot be there in person, but thank you, Dr. Coleman, for attending in my absence. Today I will be talking about our research and the social impacts of mountain biking and our experience in Quebec this past summer. More specifically, I'm going to be talking about the trends in mountain bike recreation, how they span international borders, and share some key takeaways that we've learned so far. So to start off, I'll be explaining why we are studying the social impacts of mountain biking. I'll dive into what we've done so far during this research and why. I'll briefly talk about our experiences in Quebec this past summer, and I'll share some preliminary results and implications for Quebec and next steps in this research. So why are we studying the social impacts of mountain biking? Well, there's been an increase in mountain bike popularity since the start of the pandemic, when people saw opportunities for outdoor recreation where they could remain socially distanced. This is part of a larger trend in nature-based tourism in general. And there was a bike boom. When people started buying bikes, there was a shortage of bikes and bike parts for a couple years. Mountain biking is seen as an opportunity for economic development, especially in rural communities. Investing in mountain biking trails and infrastructure is a way to diversify these economies, especially in the face of climate change, where we are experiencing less snowy winters, in which the ski industry has been suffering. These concerns are particularly important for the mountainous northern forest region, and the social impacts have been underexplored. A recent systematic literature review found that the social impacts have been understudied. Existing research on mountain biking has primarily focused on the health benefits, trail preferences, investment feasibility, and soil erosion. Conversely, the social impacts which we are most interested in include how communities are impacted, or, for example, how people feel about mountain biking in their local community, and whether or not they are included or excluded from the sport. At the start of this research, we hosted a series of listening sessions where we invited land managers from across the northeastern forest region to share with us some of their most pressing questions and concerns regarding the recent mountain bike expansion. Then we conducted interviews with trail managers and board members across the northeastern states, which includes Maine, New Hampshire, New York, Vermont, and Quebec. We asked questions about recent trends in mountain bike popularity, conflicts and tensions, safety, trail development and expansion, land ownership, and whether local communities have been supportive of this transition. Then we qualitatively coded these interviews using a framework. We also examined a case study of Kingdom Trails in Vermont, looking into a concern they have there with biker safety at road crossings. We also ran an analysis of the usability of Strava, a popular activity tracking app, to inform decisions on recreation management in rural areas specifically. Biker safety was one of the concerns raised in our listening sessions, and this is a concern that is happening across the region, not just at Kingdom Trails. This is because a lack of trail connectivity means folks have to cross roads or ride alongside roads to exit, enter, or change trails. This is especially dangerous on mountainous and curved roads in these places. Overcrowding is another concern, especially when large race events are held. Trail network capacity goes hand in hand with this. Is there an adequate parking and other facilities to support the number of visitors seen daily or on an annual basis? Educating new riders. Are new riders following the Ride with Gratitude pledge, which advocates for respecting the private land access privilege, respecting other trail users, and being good stewards of nature? Managing landowner conflict. In the eastern United States, we mostly have private land as opposed to the western United States, where there is mostly public. As you might imagine, this introduces situations where conflict can arise when a landowner allows public access for recreation on their property. And who has access and who does not, meaning who is included and who is excluded from the sport and why. What systems are in place that make it this way, or what culture or environment has been created that leads to the exclusion of some and not others. So what does this have to do with Quebec? Well, this is relevant to Quebec because mountain biking has become quite popular throughout the province, and we are seeing places like Quebec City invest in infrastructure to support the growing demand for mountain biking trails. One article even coined Quebec as having the best variety of trails in North America. We witnessed a small piece of this trend this past summer in East Hereford. We visited Circus Frontier, which is one of the Bike the Borderland locations. These locations have a partnership with the Northern Forest Center, whose mission is to create bold possibilities that give rise to vibrant northern forest communities, end quote. You'll notice towards the top is Circus Frontier. Yes, I'm butchering the name. Part of this initiative is to put these trail networks on the map and to energize rural communities and help more people discover this part of the world, move here, start a business, and live the new forest future, end quote. We visited these locations this past year and conducted interviews. So when we got there, we quickly noticed how rural this location was. We encountered a group of bikers that had just arrived from Vermont and had visited the trails before and spoke very highly of it, saying that they were really well built. There are beginner, intermediate, and expert level trails, so very versatile for various skill levels. The network is composed of 31 miles of trails, and a day pass costs 15 Canadian. They have a bike wash station, visitor information, there's a fish pond and garden right next door that's associated with the local church. It's a really beautiful area and a well-kept area. So what did we learn from this trip? Well, bikers are crossing the border, US to Canada, Canada to US. People see the value in what each trail network provides and are willing and motivated to explore. Circus Frontier saw a decrease in ridership during the time when the border was closed, but it seems that since the border closing reopened, ridership has returned to expected levels. Circus Frontier is working on trail maintenance seasonally and anticipating trail expansion in the near future. They have also a safety concern here due to some areas that lack trail connectivity where people have to ride on the roadways to access certain parts of the trail that do not interconnect. And maybe, most notably, there's a real lack of local accommodations. East Hereford is a very rural area. For lodging, you are strictly limited to tent camping or camping pods. Here's a map of the campsites. There are no Airbnbs available in the vicinity either. Restaurants and breweries are a big part of mountain bike subculture, and that is non-existent here. The closest accommodations are in Quaticook, which is about 22 minutes away. So if we are thinking about access to outdoor recreation, specifically mountain biking, in the case of Circus Frontier in East Hereford, we are not so much thinking about who can legally cross the border. We are thinking about what institutional, interpersonal, internalized, or structural societal systems we have in place that are systematically oppressing certain people from participating. With that in mind, we consulted the existing literature of the theory of access and recreation intergroup contact. We combined ideas from both to create a coding scheme where we had a total of 9 different aspects in which we were looking to identify. We found 6 out of the 9 aspects were present in one way or another at the trail network in East Hereford. So I'll give a quick description of what each are. Community engagement is if people are participating in events, sports, clubs, and activities locally that further their personal feelings of a sense of community. Legal and illegal access, meaning are people entering the trails at appropriate locations? Are they staying on marked trails, respecting signage, or are they not? This really comes into play in the northeastern forest region as Circus Frontier has private land predominantly making up their trail network access. Psychological ownership. Does a person visit this particular location so frequently that they become good stewards of the land, they educate others about the area, and they feel as though the place is theirs? Sense of welcoming and belonging. Do people feel accepted, safe, that they belong and are welcome to enjoy this area, maybe even have a strong emotional connection to the place? Access via negotiation of other social relationships. Again, the idea that most of the land that the trail networks are comprised of is private, and access to it mainly is due to the personal relationships that are established and maintained between the landowners and the trail managers. Without positive interactions and communication to resolve conflicts, these relationships could be severed, leading to a loss of access. And lastly, but certainly not least, intergroup contact. Are people from different backgrounds and demographics able to respect the experience of others in nature and respectfully coexist in the same place at the same time? All of these components are important to understand and recognize because if we want to create recreational spaces that people enjoy, we want people to have positive experiences and return and support the trail networks continuously. Identifying areas to improve or that are lacking can help ensure longevity and promote inclusivity and diversity, which in rural areas has historically been a challenge. So what are the implications of this research for Quebec? Well, I really see these four as being the main takeaways. Recreation patterns span international borders. The landscape continues beyond the border, and people are willing to travel. The international partnerships and collaboration fostered by the Bike the Borderland destination locations is evident of that. There's a real demand for infrastructure. We've seen Quebec City invest in this even prior to 2020. As Circus Frontier and other trail networks gain even more of a positive reputation within the mountain bike community, this demand for development will continue. Circus Frontier has seen stable ridership since the border reopened for non-essential travel. This trail network seems to have a very good reputation, which plays a role in drawing in folks from outside the province of Quebec. Mountain bike can foster economic growth, especially in rural areas. This is exemplified in East Hereford as the Mount Hereford camping experience, those pods I mentioned, established because of the trail network's draw in of visitors seeking overnight stays. And lastly, to wrap up, the next steps in this research project are to host a webinar where we invite back the stakeholders from our initial listening session to share with them our findings. We will produce a series of one-pagers which will summarize these results to share with stakeholders. I will also be attending the National Outdoor Recreation Conference in Lake Tahoe, Nevada, USA, where we will be able to share our findings from across the northeastern states. I would like to thank Chris Kirky and the Center for the Study of Canada at SUNY Plattsburgh for helping fund our travels to Quebec. I would like to thank our grant funder, the Northeastern States Research Cooperative, and I would like to thank Dr. Coleman again for attending the conference in my absence, and she will be taking any questions on my behalf. Thank you.